funny how my brain works. I'm like, okay, so what if you hung it on private facing into the public?
It seems like it would be legal.
What's worse, the consequence for having a camera on public or for trespassing on private? You always got to be weighing the options.
You got to find a loophole.
Yeah, always got to be weighing the options.
That seems like a loophole. Yeah.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire, whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Hey,
HUNTR Podcast, episode 144.
Hey, remember to like, follow, subscribe. YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Give us a listen and a follow. We appreciate you.
Yeah. It kind of jump-started me. We've been off hours on our podcast.
Yeah, sorry.
One was
whoa.
Creek Kings was 1 a.m. It's sub 8 a.m. now.
I know it's early because as you were clapping your hands, I was in my mind was going, nah, I don't buy jam. I buy honey and I kiss it on the lips.
Oh my God. It is the last day of August, 31st. August felt like it kind of drug out there for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Feel that way?
Oh, yeah. Today's still August? It's the 31st?
It's 31st, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Gary Busey was in that pitching movie.
He was.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I kind of stumbled across that the other day.
Old Gary.
Yeah, for a minute I was like, hey, great mustache. And then I was like, that's Gary Busey. And then I came full circle on that.
Yes. Yeah, what was that? The Rookie? No.
It's the
yeah.
The arm one.
The Rookie?
No, the Rookie's Dennis Quaid.
Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Very similar
Great
titles.
movie. Great movie.
Yeah, great movie.
What's that? What else is that kid in?
The Rookie of the Year kid?
Yeah.
Oh, American Pie.
Yeah, that's who it is.
I like that. A little pop culture for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of pop culture, I was noticing I have a Elf mug for anyone born in the late 70s, 80s. Alf.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Elf, Will Ferrell. Alf.
We need to update our mug selection.
Yeah,
it's comical, but fairly weak.
This mug's probably older than me. Anyways, yes, August 31st. Tomorrow's September 1st.
Early morning today. Nick, this was your call.
I know.
Way to go, Nick.
Way to go.
I know. And I ended up being
and
15
you were
minutes late. I know. Well,
that's all right. We probably needed the extra 15.
Yeah, I only got about 4 hours of sleep. I'm dragging right now, but hopefully this coffee will give me a nice little boost.
So if we hear any snoring during the podcast, it's just Nick passed out.
I'll be okay. It probably around 2 p.m. is when I'll start to slow down.
Yeah.
We've had some requests recently for Nick to have his camera view as well. So I don't know if we have to strap a GoPro on his mic or what.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think the fans might. I don't know.
The fans.
They're like, oh, wow. We didn't know Nick was 13.
We will need to get some more cameras probably at some point.
Yeah.
Two more of those.
We'll get to the old in-studio.
We'll throw a camera on your neck. We'll have to figure out where to put that thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking just like a GoPro right there. And
maybe
right down the pipe.
Maybe episode 150 we'll give a
oh, there you
reveal.
go.
There you go.
Yeah, Nick reveal.
A Nick reveal.
Get us to 25K subs. We'll get a Nick reveal.
We're on our way. Speaking of which, I guess it was Rendell's. So 2 podcasts ago, we were like, oh, we're going to hit 20. We hit 20. So thank you.
We did.
We hit 20.
Quicker than we thought.
We were over the hump into the 20,000s on YouTube at least. Also appreciate everyone listening on Apple and Spotify because those numbers have grown substantially in the last 30 to 60 days, I guess. So yeah, as Jared said, wherever you're listening, we appreciate it. Well, we went to your farm yesterday. plot twist, it's just Jared and I today. And there goes everybody.
Yeah.
We went to your farm yesterday.
Yep.
We needed, so Nick, do you think we'll have new commercials during this one?
Probably probably this one.
Okay.
Yeah, probably this one.
If not, blame Nick. But there's a chance that we've got, you'll hear new commercials from the Deer Grow, Stealthcam, Hoyt, etc.
Keep it fresh.
Yep. And so we shot some content up at the farm yesterday, moved the muddy blind.
My excuse to get some free labor out of you guys.
Yep. That makes sense. Hey, yeah, I mean.
Oh, you guys were filming that?
Yeah. Mama Prussia made dinner, so I mean, can't complain about that.
Great meal.
She takes good care of us.
Yeah, great meal.
Yeah.
Little brewskis.
Yep.
Little glassing. We saw one good buck last night.
Yeah, we did.
Super, like right at the last light. I mean, we probably didn't have much longer to push it, but probably
looked better than I thought.
Yeah, probably mid 50s, 9 point.
We'll say, he'll get killed. I'm gonna say
he'll get killed.
I'm gonna say low 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I'll give him 150, 152.
He just he didn't have a real good 4, but he had great 2s and 3s.
Yeah, solid frame, good
big
mass.
frame. Yeah. So that was cool. We saw a lot of deer last night, and yesterday was the day. Like obviously it was August 30th, but it felt like a perfect opening day.
I know.
Weather was like just banging. It was like 70 degrees at the most.
That was nice to be outside yesterday. Brassica blinds were looking good. I was
looking
encouraged
good
by that.
Mm-hmm.
That blind move was solid. Got a couple cameras kind of shifted and
set a couple coyotes.
Oh, dude, I don't even want to look at my stealth bill right now. It's got to be.
Oh yeah, I don't look at that thing.
Yeah, I haven't. Actually.
I see it come up. I
I might not.
Yeah, I see it come up often, but I don't look at it. Well, we talked.
I'll see the credit card getting out of control, and I'll just blame Margie.
We talked. Yeah, there you go. We talked just over the last couple weeks. I think I'm gonna try to put some non-cells up here on Ohio and Kentucky. I've got piss poor service in some of those areas, anyways, but try to bury them. I listened to Rendell's podcast of us and Rendell, and the hiding of the camera more and more seems like maybe a critical error on my part.
Not hiding it.
Yeah, just throwing it on the tree, eye level or deer level, and letting it eat. We talk about these deer avoiding cameras. Whether it's because of the cellular transmission or it's just the camera in general. I mean, they know it's there, right? I mean, clearly. And it would seem that if you would, put that a little bit better out of view, whether you elevate it and angle it down or whatever, do they still feel that it's there? Do they still detect it? Are they as spooked? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you've seen that as much on your farm, though.
It definitely spooks them. I mean, I've hunted over cameras a fair amount, and they certainly know it's there.
They know it's there.
And I don't know, depending on how long it's been there, I think that makes a difference. Like early on, it freaks them out a little bit. But if it's where they want to be, if it's covering a food plot or something like that, it doesn't. They seem to get used to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just
especially
because it becomes a fixture.
Yeah, and there's so many cameras like out on the landscape now, and I'm moving them around so frequently.
Yeah,
they don't seem to. They definitely look at it. They see it's there, but then they.
I think in those, like, whether it's a big timber setting or we talk about public land stuff, like where it's not a natural or more common fixture, I would assume that sets off the alert signals a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're in a 1,000-acre block of timber that not many people are hunting, and all of a sudden deer's walking down the trail, and boom, there's this trail camera right in front of them. I assume that's going to freak them out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're coupling it with other things that are sketchy to them, it probably freaks them out more.
Like a giant bait pile.
Yeah, like a corn pile. They're definitely more wary of all of those things
unnatural
together. Especially if they can't approach it in a way that they feel comfortable. But so like if I'm just running it over a food plot, for instance, and maybe it's got a scrape like out of the corner of its view, it doesn't seem to bother them too bad. They'll still come hit the scrape, but I find myself like questioning like spots that I intend to hunt. Like that oak, that where that 8 point's at.
Yep.
I'm find myself. I did put a camera there, so
and you've got him on camera since.
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Not a lot though.
Once or twice, and
yeah.
But once those acorns start dropping, he's not gonna not go eat from that tree, and he's not gonna just shift to day to overnight.
Yeah.
So it just is what it is. I put it in there. I expect them to have some kind of reaction to it, but I think they'll adapt.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think the other big thing, and I mean, we've been putting our cell cameras, we did it yesterday, we put it on a Dakota lithium, like a big Dakota 10 amp lithium battery. So trying to get it through the season, but obviously cell cams eat up batteries, and no matter what your signal is, like they eat through batteries. And so, I feel like every year we probably talk about it or I mention it. Like I've got an entire fleet of non-cell cameras that I don't use that often, unless I like really can't get signal. Like they need to just be deployed and like let them eat.
yeah, you saw my only non-cell camera yesterday. I'll be surprised if I'm surprised it didn't get stolen yet.
Yeah,
because it's pretty obvious right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could have reached out the vehicle and grabbed it.
I gotta believe those guys on the Ranger would have seen that.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. People aren't really looking for that stuff, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe people do see it and they just don't think I'm gonna get pictures of anything there.
Sure.
Which is funny because that's where I got
the
biggest deer last year.
Yeah. Who was it that we were talking to that's leaving the cameras all year and then was it Donnie?
It's Rendell.
Rendell was leaving the cameras all year, pulling them, and then doing like his analysis at the end of the year to see those.
Well, I mean,
trends.
a lot of guys do that, I guess, but yeah, he talked about it most recently. I do that too. Just more and more of mine have shifted to sell. So I mean, I do have some that I let them soak, and I have signal just about everywhere. Mm-hmm. But for instance, if we were going to be hunting like, which we kind of are, but we just didn't have the jump on it yet, like Kansas Public. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess no, you can't run any. Can't run any cameras. I would say.
Yeah, that would have been a place to do it. Mm-hmm. I could.
That is crazy. Yeah, no cells on or no cameras on Kansas Public at all. Interesting.
Or not on walk-in either.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Bastards.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be a thought for, even like our new Illinois farm, seeing how often we get there. If we really want to make sure that we're getting data throughout the season.
It's funny how my brain works. I'm like, okay, so what if you hung it on private facing into the public?
It seems like it would be legal.
What's worse, the consequence for having a camera on public or for trespassing on private? Yeah, I always got to be weighing the options.
You got to find a loophole.
Yeah, I was going to be weighing the options.
That seems like a loophole. Yeah. Yeah. One is, I mean, you just got to get caught at the end of the day. I will say that Kansas has been one that was, at least from a department side, those guys are pretty patrol heavy, or it seems like, because we've lost stands on Kansas Public. For whatever, leaving them up an extra couple weeks or whatever. When we come back for shed season, it's like they're gone.
Yeah, I assume it's the department.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
I mean, they're buried in there.
Hard to say. It's funny the things that happen in the woods while we're not there. Like things you never think will happen. I mean, they do. And sometimes, more often than you think. Just people, whatever. People that you never think would be back there or just things you never think would happen. It's like, oh, no, they do.
Well, that becomes the difficult part about cameras is, the one thing I think we all kind of...
Got a picture of a German Shepherd running through one of them. Like,
did you?
Yeah, like just
you put
like that.
You put outside the back of your head is that you're capturing a very limited angle view of the woods around that camera, and so like you fall victim to saying, well, yeah, no, I haven't seen anybody on that camera. Like nobody's going back there. Oh yeah, they're in there. They're around there. They're just not on camera.
It really is an art, and it's a constant like evolution to figure out how to be the most effective with cameras as possible. And so I have some that I, to your point, I know they're not getting everything, but they have a really high chance. Like that East Wing camera that I have, it's on a food source, but it's not an original idea that I'm having here. But guys call all kind of different things, but trying to get as many reasons for the deer to be in front of the camera as possible. So like I have that camera over a year-round mineral site that I could choose to put bait at or not. It's on a food plot, a corner of a food plot that I know they're coming into, and it's got a scrape back in the distance. I've got like a fence post scrape put in there. So there's all kind of reasons for them to kind of come through that corner. It's the corner they want to come through naturally. It's the corner I shot that velvet deer out of. And so I'm trying to, I'm always like wishing that my cameras were better. or had more because you just can't keep up with it. It's like, there's a traditional transition from like, guys run cameras over mineral, and then it's like, okay, now let's shift them to, what?
Yeah, oaks, scrapes, whatever.
Oaks, scrapes. Those are your traditional, food plots. Things that you just want to be monitoring, and then it comes back to your strategy of like how closely is your hunting strategy going to be tied to, pictures, or is it more of an inventory? Is it more of are you counting on a deer moving into an area? And so it's constantly like you're trying to get ahead of them, but also have recent relevant information, but also, not spook stuff. And
well, I mean, that's the danger of cameras, whether it's cell cameras or regular cameras. The fact is that, since kind of the advent of trail cameras, hunters have backed off of the woodsmanship side of things because you're like, I've got eyes 24/7 in this spot. I remember taking, film to be developed at whatever Target or Walmart or wherever it was.
What does that mean to you? Sorry not to cut you off. What is that woodsmanship like? I mean, I obviously have a basis of an understanding there.
So my woodsmanship, I look at it kind of, I'll, date myself as a near 40-year-old here. Like, I look at it as what I grew up hunting, which was...
When is your birthday, by the way?
What?
When is your birthday, by the way?
April 3rd.
Okay. Let's not forget that. Like, we got to do something.
Yeah.
Don't let me forget that.
Got some time. Figure it out.
All right.
Just make
You're
sure.
turning 40 in April?
Yeah.
All right.
Big 4-0.
Big 4-0, huh?
Get you some diapers or something.
What-
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you up. What's that?
What's your favorite dessert?
I don't know. To think about that. I like
cream pies.
I like a good ice cream cake.
All right.
Ice cream cake? Okay.
I know a guy.
In the notes.
I know a guy.
Got it in the notes.
I know a guy.
All right. Sorry. Early morning deviation. Talking about woodsmanship. You're almost 40.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks. So I look at it more of like kind of how I grew up, which was, reading sign, so scrapes, rubs, tracks,
Okay. Sign.
understanding the terrain
Observing
side
sign.
of things. I will say that.
In what sense? What do you mean understanding terrain?
So just understanding how terrain is going to, essentially affect deer movement or affect animal movement in general. Like where are the deer, where are the animals most likely to work through? Cover.
What do you think? Some examples of terrain, features?
Leeward ridges, huge, right out of the gate. So like understanding,
when do you think you started to understand that? That for me wasn't until...
I don't think I understood like the concept of or the consistency of why deer are bedded on leeward ridges as much as I just would experience deer bedding on those ridges and being like, they're always bedding here, it seems like.
When did you think you started to understand that?
To put the two together, that when...
Or just to even have that consideration. I don't think I did until it was... I don't know if it was Dan Infalt or it was the video. It was that Hill Country Bucks video is what... Well, the first time I ever heard it, I was like...
I still haven't...
This is revolutionary.
I still don't think I've watched that video. I'll have to
it's worth a
find
watch.
it. Yeah.
It's worth a watch.
Mine was like mine was more experience driven. So, obviously,
well, I was experiencing it. I just didn't understand what I was experiencing.
Yeah. Well, and
I was
so
like that hillside. They seemed to be on more, but I didn't understand that it was the leeward ridge.
Yes, I would agree. Same boat though. So like my experiences
That's 5 or 6
were
years
driven
ago for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was so we both grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up doing deer drives like crazy. Like, I mean, I probably half of Pennsylvania I've driven out at some point in time in my career. So when I was younger, even when I was like 10, 11, 12, like I knew most of the areas that I had my deer camp and stuff around better than the adults did. And so I could say,
and where
hey,
the deer would pinch down to when you push
you
them.
set here, you set here, you set here. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to bring this ridge around. And I knew exactly where I was going to kick deer out of. Did I fathom why the deer were bedding there besides like it was grapevine or there was a bunch of, briars or whatever it was? No, like the wind aspect wasn't necessarily there. But I knew, very likely. Now, where the puzzle would come in is like, let's say, I drive that out, kick the... Eventually, like, you go through and, like, you don't push anything out. And then it's like, okay, well, is it because I've pushed it out 2 weeks ago? Is it because and again, in my head, I wasn't even thinking about it. Maybe it was because the wind was different, and so they weren't bedded there. So there was a point where I would confuse pressure probably being affected by other conditions like wind. So I would walk through an area where I would expect deer to be. They weren't there, and I'm like, shit, we've blown this area. Like
or changing food source or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually it was in a pretty tight time frame, so I'm sure it was more wind oriented than it was food source oriented. But I didn't comprehend. I didn't comprehend that until I was in college, probably. Just because that's not how I hunted necessarily. Like even when I was paying attention to the wind. So part of that woodsmanship growing up was knowledge of the wind and how you wanted to work in the wind. But, I grew up hunting suburban Pittsburgh. I could watch people's TV from my tree stand. Like I didn't pay attention to the wind worth shit. I could tell you that, 98% of the hunts I had as a kid, like sat the same 2x4 tree stand every time, regardless of wind.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when that, when consideration of the wind started to come in for me, because we definitely didn't in the beginning either. I can remember the first tree stand that I ever hung and hunted and shot deer out of. Shot at deer out of.
But I mean, I was gonna say most of us had one tree stand.
And there definitely was no thought. It was like, oh, it's an apple orchard. The deer want to.
You have a spot that you hunted. Like I could remember when my dad wouldn't hunt.
And I was blowing deer out like crazy.
Oh, yeah,
we would park like 100 yards away from it on the guy's driveway. It was permission.
Yeah.
And I would just walk right
and
through this field.
Out.
And I knew it was I was like, that's why I thought it was a good spot, because everywhere was like, whoo, whoo, whoo. I was like, there's so many deer here, Yeah,
my dad and I used to walk right through like 40 acres of soybean to get to our trees, because there was no way out. There wasn't any other way to get in there. And I can clearly remember, like, if, let's say my dad was working or something, and I was like, yeah, I'm going out. Like, I'd be like, yeah, I'm slipping into his trees. It didn't matter what the wind was. It was just like, I'm changing spots.
Sure.
And so at one point, I would say probably when I was, I'd say 15 or 16 is when I got my first climber. Prior to that, it was all like homemade built tree stands, I would say. 2x4s in a tree. We built some like lean-to ladder stand type tree stands. But
your first tree stand was a climber?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Summit.
Mine was a gorilla hang-on.
Really?
Remember those?
Oh, yeah. The netting seat?
No, it was a flat seat. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it wasn't a bad stand.
No, I have.
The cables eventually snapped on me.
I think I have one in a tree still. I probably shouldn't go in it.
Yeah.
There's probably tree stands littered in Pennsylvania from me still. You remember what was the old brand? Comfort Zone? Remember that Comfort Zone brand? Maybe that was like a Dick's Sporting Goods brand. You could buy a hang-on Comfort Zone for $29.
Oh yeah, same with those. I don't know if it was the gorillas.
Gorillas were more expensive.
Yeah, there was a little more high end.
A little more high end.
Yeah. But they've sold those since. They've had like Field and Stream versions of that same.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was the model. That was the early model. But
and then old man. But I think I had a Summit climber. But I was like 16, and so that was the first time like I still didn't really understand the wind, but I was mobile, and that was cool. Like to be able to be like, okay, I've seen deer here all the time. I'm gonna go hunt that, and I would screw it up, but I thought I was in the game. And like there was, it's so funny now because I mean, think of how often we move spots. I can remember like getting into a new spot and instantly feeling like I could kill a buck here tonight, just because it was brand new. It was like,
You were doing that when you were like 16?
Yes.
Wow. See, we weren't at all. Like we were purely hang-ons. I didn't hunt out of a climber until I was like after college.
Really?
And I hated it.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this is why I've never done it.
It's loud.
I knew guys
heavy.
that would, and I never understood it. I was like, man, that seems kind of crazy. I'd see guys walking through the woods, but it just
because at that time I don't even know if like sticks existed, like the 20-foot section existed, but I don't know if like individual like portable sticks existed.
I think they did. They were clunky for sure, and you'd have those big like. They've gotten pretty good now at how the straps attached.
Sure.
To, they used to have the big like.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if River's Edge or something still does that, the wraparound deal but yeah, we always were stuck on. We could move them, and my Uncle Dale was obviously always.
I didn't move any of my stand. Like besides I didn't move a single stand.
Yeah, we didn't move them very frequently. It was kind of like, hey, we made a few moves maybe throughout the year, but it was highly discussed, highly debated.
Man, that's so funny. I remember I was probably...
They're still highly debated, but...
I don't know if I was in high school or early college. It's probably high school. And I knew, we talked about this before. I don't care. I grew up hunting Penn Trafford area, Westmoreland County. If you're not from Pennsylvania or Western Pennsylvania, you don't know where the hell that is. But that's where I grew up hunting. And I remember it was it was like the second day of gun season, because we usually were up at deer camp for first day or even first and second. It's like second day of gun season. We came home. I skipped school. I probably, mom wrote a sick note, whatever. And I was going to put on drives in the morning.
My sickness. This just says I can do whatever I want.
I can do whatever I want. I was going to put on drives in the morning. I think I was already tagged out. And so my dad went into a stand that I had set for that actually I had killed a buck out of an archery season there. And so this is college probably. And I was like a half mile away. I was going to push this thicket out to him. I was going to give him like a half hour after daybreak, and then I'm like, screw it. Like, we're driving the rest of the day. And like right after daybreak, I heard, pow. It's like, that sounded like and I don't know. Like, there's other guys hunting around. I think he ended up shooting twice. And no cell phones, like, And so I remember getting up to him. And
wow, you remember that? No cell phones?
Yeah. He killed like a really nice 9-point. Like, I have pictures. It was probably like low 130s 9-point. So like at that point in time was like a stud. And it had 12-inch 2s and 11-inch 3s. Like, wow, that is really cool. I'll find a picture of it. It's freaking awesome. Yeah. And like he was stoked. At that point, I think it was his biggest buck you've ever killed. And I was like, I was like, well, what happened? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, I can't believe it. Like, right at day, because this is one of those farms that after archery season, the deer are in holes, like hunkered down type stuff. He's like, yeah, right at daybreak, I heard something. Here he comes walking up, hit a scrape, and he's like, I shot him at 10 yards with a slug gun, because we couldn't use rifles in that county. And I was like, what? Like, that's just, it was so foreign that like a deer did something that deer do.
He just walked to you? Like,
yeah.
What do you mean?
During gun season of Pennsylvania. And,
that's funny.
But like, that would be a perfect situation. I wish I could rewind and say like, what was the wind doing? Like, what, why did that deer come that way? Because my dad, again, had walked through 40 acres of beans, basically crossed that deer's path to get in there. And it's like, what? Why would he do that? Like, he's probably 4-year-old buck, I would say. It's like, it was so foreign at the time, but now, like, you could easily put those data points together and be like, shit, of course, like, the wind was coming this way. He was angling up into it. He was checking that scrape line, and he was hugging that bedding area. But like, that was so foreign to me, 20 years ago even.
Yeah, that's the blessing and the curse of, or, some would say like ignorance is bliss. Like the fact that it happened, it was such a mystery, such like a magical, and it still would be awesome,
Yes.
So, but you have an understanding now of how it's, and I'd rather have the knowledge than not, but certainly it's fun to look back and say, oh, I can't believe that worked out. Like, I did everything wrong. And
there was a simplicity and a mystery behind it that made deer hunting really cool. Also made it, we talked about this before, made it really tough. To where like that was so foreign. It was like, we paraded that thing around. I remember it like my dad having like in the back of the truck with the tailgate down, and it was, it was a big deal. And I miss that stuff, because you just don't, you don't hear about that. You don't feel that way with a lot of things anymore on the hunting side, because we know so much about it. But I think the one thing that I really believe is interesting around it is, I think with all of the knowledge we have now, there's an overload. We overcomplicate a lot of things. And frankly, I think we are as effective as we were 20 years ago, even with all this new data and all this new tactic type stuff, because we overcomplicate things. Now, throw aside the fact of whatever, baiting, straight wall cartridges, like all the evolutions we have today. But in terms of back to your woodsmanship thing, like even with an Onyx or whatever, like there's so much information now. I think most people, and this is not like putting people down, most people can't process, or they over process the amount of intel. And I'll use myself as an example. Think about how cell cameras have affected the way I hunt.
Yeah.
I used to.
Yeah. It's just over analysis.
Yeah. 7 years ago, I 100% checked cameras and scouted more than I hunted in a season.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's the most stressful thing is deciding where to go. The past couple, I've gotten better at it because it's I've tried to take the pressure off of myself.
Yeah.
Well, it's just so much. I've put so much pressure on myself in past years to be successful or whatever, that it's like I'm the last one to leave because I'm so stressed out about going to the right spot or whatever. But do you think we're way more effective
throwing, even just from a woodsmanship side?
No, just
that's what I'm saying.
At a killing deer.
No. I'm saying just from a throw the effectiveness of weapons and bait, just from a woodsmanship side. I'm trying to tie it back to our woodsmanship.
Not just weapons and bait necessarily, but it's also mindset. I think the understanding of deer movement and of hunting strategies is much better. The bar is much higher than it was.
Sure.
From the
I just
time
wonder
you're
if there's
about.
too much. Like, there's a point of, for some people, not everybody, but for some people, including myself, there's a point of too much knowledge to where, I'm the Tommy boy with the biscuit and blow it up.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas, like, the ignorance is bliss back there, and I relied on a lot of gut instinct type stuff. Sure, I messed a ton of things up, and I didn't understand leeward ridges and things, but there was a gut instinct of how to hunt.
Yeah, so it's more of a, I think you would also agree. We're much more effective now and have a better understanding, but it's which is better.
Yeah. Well, even say, whether you talk about Onyx.
That's true for anything. Yeah.
It's evolution.
Yeah, we have the information now. Like it's the information age. Like we know, everything about everything. Essentially, like the information, you can Google anything right now.
All right at the fingertips. That's where so tie back into the woodsman thing. The one thing that I think has been really, it's been a huge help, but it's taken away from a lot is what's on your shirt. But not just those guys, but Onyx, Spartan Forge, etc. That didn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? Google Earth barely existed back then.
Yeah.
So in order to understand a piece of area, you went out and walked it. Mm-hmm. You were feet on the ground. You spent a lot of time doing that, but you understood the intricacies. Now think about how much you and I just aerial scout. We don't even we're like, we're not going to walk through that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not more efficient, but you absolutely will overlook places just because from an aerial, because you're trying to cover more ground, you're just like, it's not worth going back in there.
Sure.
We would have never known back then.
Sure.
You had to go and see it.
Yeah, well, and we're also covering, the amount of ground I've got access to now
thousands.
compared to back then is, times 50 or whatever. Yeah.
It's a macro versus micro level.
It definitely allows you to waste less time, I think. But it's funny, I was just remembering back to...
Is it wasting time, though?
It's hard to say. Because you can find stuff that's not... You definitely will find stuff that's not on the maps, but it also allows you to hone in and go right to the spot and confirm, you can be more efficient with your time.
That's where, I don't know, just kind of reflecting. The cool thing is, here we are, what Nick said, this is coming out like September 9th or something like that. The cool thing is we're podcast even. We're kind of making this switch here. We've been talked a lot about a lot of everything in the off season, right? And now it's the hunt.
They all start to blur together.
Yeah.
It's like, but it feels like it's been the season here now. Just the way we've been running. And
now it's the hunting season, right? And so think about that macro versus micro scouting level. And now the effectiveness of access on hunting and stuff. Like the fact that you can cover thousands and thousands of acreage.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
You have a buck?
I don't know if this is my target or not, but this is, he just sent me, target acquired in North Dakota.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a giant.
Stud. Yeah, that's a giant 8.
He sent me a bunch of pictures. That's a hammer.
Yeah. It's 150 plus inch 8.
Yeah.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt. But yeah, so think about that micro and macro level scouting and how that's affected access. Like the fact that you can now cover thousands of acres where years ago you were focused on this 400 acres because that's all you had time for.
Yeah, well, you know, scouting should be, the strategy should be prescribed based off of like how you're going to hunt it. Like, so many guys are in so many different situations, on one end of the spectrum, it's like I'm gonna early season bow hunt versus I'm gonna, during the rut gun hunt or whatever it is. It's like the scouting should be, based on
And I don't know if that was 20 years
like
ago,
at home,
right?
like a home farms. It's like I know every square inch of my farm because I've walked it all, during off seasons or in season scouting, and we hunt it. Throughout all of those phases. But, but if we were going to go, and we will, for instance, when we go out to Kansas, we know it's going to be probably that third week of November. So it doesn't make sense for me to scout summer food sources or, white oak trees
Not at
necessarily. All. It's like I'm looking for terrain features. Yeah, they're going to funnel deer movement or, and bedding area type stuff still, but features that will be relevant for, when we're going to be hunting it.
I think it interests. I guess where I'm looking and putting that around.
And the maps do allow us to that Pretty Boy that I missed the other day.
Yep.
That was
X marks the spot.
That was a great example of kind of both. Like I was able to kind of see that spot from a distance.
We were in the area,
but it was one of those deals where I didn't want to go all the way into because it was peak season. I was like, I didn't want to ruin it, so I backed out, looked at it on a map, and I was like, yes, that's that, and then I planned my access and everything, and so I probably wouldn't have done that as effectively or efficiently without.
No, you probably would have went in and blew deer out, and it's just funny because I look back, my deer camp area, I hunted the same. I don't know what it was. It's a couple thousand acres probably that was open, like coal mine, strip mine type ground that was open for public.
Up north, Big Woods stuff.
No, not that far. Indiana County. So,
okay.
Not too far. Like if you put me in that stuff, it's obviously going to look different, right? 20 years. I haven't been up there in 20 years. If you put me in that stuff today, I bet I could walk where most of those features are and where those deer are. But if you put me in some of the stuff that I hunt now, I couldn't tell you nearly as much detail about it.
Really?
Because I'm not in it as much. I'm not forced to be in it as much, is what I'm saying. That's the woodsmanship thing that I.
But once you do walk it, I mean, dude, the reality is, I think we're just wired for this, and so for whatever reason, like my wife can tell me something, and I instantly forget it.
Yeah.
But if I go walk a piece of woods once, I for the rest of my life, I know exactly what it looks. If I get a picture of a deer 5 years ago, and for some reason he were to show up somewhere else, I'm like, that's a deer.
Yeah.
Like. I just have those like neurons are connected in my brain. I'm like,
it's just, I think it's just weird because it's like,
but if you never walk it, you don't know.
Well, but even if you do, like, I feel like I speed through, like speed scout, or let's say it's a bedding area. I don't want to go in the bedding area unless it's off season. So like I'm skirting it and stuff. 20 years ago, I was in the jungle. I was climbing through it, and so it's just you knew what was in it.
Well, here I can kind of relate to your micro versus, I mean, you can really get micro to where you're like, I used to think of like deer, like every log that was down, every step, and I guess pay attention to that stuff, but that's not nearly as critical, I don't think. I suppose it does, like once you nail it down, but like it's hard to describe that mind. I used to think like, I don't know, that's the best way I can put it, I guess, is behind every bush or behind. I'm like this. The reality is though, like there's probably just one mature buck, one target, or maybe a small handful in a certain area, and the macro is probably more important of a place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm having a hard time describing that. It's not like a deer's gonna, and maybe sometimes they do only move 50 or 100 yards. And it's like that really does matter. But until you have figured that out, it's like the macro is way more important to figure out like what types of areas these deer are in.
So think about you're going through those bedding areas. At what point, how long ago do you think it was before you realized, oh, like all these beds this means does and fawns and not a buck?
I still don't always. I mean,
Yeah.
There's your telltale signs of typically. It's a little bit of everything. Like,
but I mean, I can clearly remember walking through areas and be like, oh, there's a buck in here. But it's just like it could have been all does and fawns bedding. Like those two concepts never really.
Well, it comes down to understanding of why they would be there, and then it's an estimated, or it's a what's the word, like the bed that we found in Illinois.
On that
knob, it was a good example of like we had seen on a map before. Hey, there's a knob right here. It's overlooking this. The wind, prevailing wind is going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
The food source is here.
There should be a big.
We
buck
knew
bedded
walking
there.
out onto that ridge, like, hey, it would make sense if there was one here. And then there was a giant bed there, and all signs pointed to, it probably is.
Yep.
And that'd be an example. But if we didn't have that prior knowledge, and I just was blindly walking and stumbled into like a bed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's things that I think would indicate one or the other. Like size of the bed, obviously, is a big one. If it's a massive,
any rubs around it,
any rubs is a dead giveaway. Does typically will bed together, like in groups. So if you get like
smaller bed,
3, 4, 5 beds, smaller, closer together, it's probably a doe bed. But bucks will get up and have
multiple beds.
beds.
We saw
too.
that with that Illinois deer a couple years ago on camera.
Yeah.
So
you don't always know.
I think that's where
I don't know if they're 100% exclusive either. I mean,
it'd be interesting because and given I'm as much time as I spend in the woods, and I hate admitting it, like I'm rusty at it because of the way that we've transformed or evolved here as hunters recently. But it'd be interesting to take some people, maybe not just newer hunters, but guys who've just started hunting the last time, take them through the woods and just let them tell you about what they're seeing.
Okay. What do you mean?
Well, just take them for a walk in the woods and,
Talking experienced hunters or just guys?
Yeah. I mean, even in the last 10 years, like people who have really just like wrapped their hands around everything in the last 10 years, put them in a situation where, technology aside, maps aside, walk through the woods, tell me what you're seeing. I think I'd struggle.
Oh yeah,
significantly.
Sure. Well, dude, I can tell you from my recent experience with Jed, and not at all,
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing this for a long time, but so not to brag on like our skill or what, we're obviously still I've got a lot to learn, but I would take for granted, and so my example with Jed is like teaching him how to shoot a bow.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to even explain
because it's natural to you.
Well. Spelling it out for him, taking it back to the very basic building blocks of hand positioning on the grip, elbow,
things
breathing, thought processes you're doing, that how to like anchor points, all those little things that like just we've been doing for so long, and
it's muscle memory.
Had good coaching coming up and failed at all, whatever's led to like our level of expertise on that now, I think is absolutely as true when it comes to like woodsmanship, hunting strategy, all the things that we're talking about here. We know a lot.
Yeah,
we did, and I'm saying that like,
well, even people listening to this, like we as a group, if you're involved in it, if you're entrenched in it, you know a lot. You know way more than you think. You know.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying I know more than you, but it's like we take for granted probably all the little things that we're picking up that at this point are instinct, like just knowing. Just like picking up on where you, like if you were to drop you somewhere and say, okay, here's where I'm at, if you have a map to reference, that would be even more helpful. Okay, here's these different features, things that are going to get used at different types of season. Here's, prevailing wind directions. Here's, all these different things. And then, somehow over it really is years. And every year you hope to add to that arsenal of things that you understand that, make a more complete picture. To a point where you're, and when I say we know a lot, we don't know anything. There's guys that know way more than we do. But it's like,
we as the entrenched hunting people right now, but the entrenched bow hunter, know a lot.
Well, take us now and take us 10 years ago and drop us in the same piece of woods, and like you're looking at it totally differently.
Yeah. And I'm not, but I wouldn't say that 10 years ago you'd be looking at it wrong. You're just looking at it completely different. I think you're looking at it 10 years ago. I think you're looking at it at a micro level. You're looking at the little intricacies. You're looking at the way the trails are, the way the terrain is, and things like that. Today,
I think without perspective or context.
Correct.
Yeah.
Today, you're looking at it on a macro level because you know that there's a giant food source over here. You know that this has just been logged. You know that this is owned by a hunting club.
I'll tell you what, too, is interesting, because you mentioned this last night. We did the same thing with deer, like specific deer.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, you and I would have looked at deer last night, and all we would have known is that's a giant. We would come back and told our friends. And
giant.
And in a way, it's, I catch myself being like dismissive of characteristics of deer, or like to where I'm like, because I know what it is, I don't want to be the downer on the excitement, but if guys will show me pictures and I really...
You said it yesterday. When we were shooting, I heard you and your dad were talking about that deer, and you're like, yeah, I know, it's a 3-year-old. Yep. And I was like I just, in my peripherals, I'm hearing it.
Exactly.
Because he's saying, so-and-so said there's a giant running over there. And you're like, yeah, I know which deer it is. It's a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And I was
because I have the information.
laughing.
He sent me the picture.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, you got to understand, my dad and I's dynamic too. But
it is that mindset of it.
Well, and it is a giant deer. Like, to a lot of guys,
Sure.
it is a giant. And even, it was.
It's a
It was a
really
great deer. It was a
big deer.
150s, 4-year-old. The deer was better when we saw him in person.
Yeah, we're like, that's a big deer.
But, you can use my dad as an example. But anybody, deer are the most miscategorized thing of all time, probably. I saw a giant. Well, it's this. And I very much am in favor of, because I've seen so many deer. Like, I'm running 30 cameras right. I've seen a lot of deer.
Yeah.
And so I am not perfect, but I have a pretty good understanding of what they are and what they aren't. And so,
whereas 10 and 20 years ago, we didn't. All you
Not at
knew is the deer that you saw, or your buddy killed, or somebody showed you a picture in the bow shop. There was no social media.
Yeah.
That's what we said it a few weeks ago. To fathom, like, the only time I knew there were giants is if I got like a deer and deer hunting in the mail, to be like, oh my God, like, deer like this exist.
Mm-hmm.
Not in my area, of course, but like, they exist, like in Illinois or Iowa. There are giants out there. Now it's like, to your point, we saw that deer last night, really big buck, not a giant, because we see giants almost every day.
Giant,
dude, pull up Facebook
giant
right
is
now.
a relative term to, like, it is a giant to some people. To us even, you could say that. It's just
it is relative. Yes.
It's relative is the word.
Yeah. Because anybody who's just out to, and no offense, but if you're out to just kill a buck, that deer's a giant to you.
Well, and I don't even want to take away from the deer, because, like, it is a giant and it's in its own right. But that term is relative. Is exactly what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's based off just your experience with deer, the amount of time you've been hunting, whatever. But, like, at one point in time, I shot a 125-inch 2-year-old, and it was a giant. Yeah. And then another time, I shot a 135-inch 3-year-old, and it was a giant. And it was true in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
But now I tend to err on the side of it is what it is. Like, and I do like the term, giant, stud, pig, it's hot, all these things. Like, I get excited about that too. And there is a true scale. I mean, so I think I'm just looking at it on a different scale. Like, we've had awesome opportunities to be able to hunt the Midwest, and I've seen giants. I've seen them. Even if it's just trail camera pictures of other people, I've seen 300-inch deer.
I mean,
and so when I see a 150-inch deer, it's not a giant. But it's not a 200-inch deer.
I mean, that's the crazy part. And it again,
and I would shoot that deer probably. I would probably shoot that deer.
Again, yeah, because it checks several of the boxes, including he's at least 4 years old.
Yeah, and so I don't want to take away from anybody's experience, including my own, which I have done, to where I'm like too realistic about or maybe not too realistic.
Yeah.
But
no, but that is a weird thing, because let's use our...
It is what it is. I just don't want people...
Yeah. Like, use our Illinois piece. We have 2 awesome 3-year-olds right now. 2, like a 3-year-old 10, and then that split G 210. So we have two really good 3-year-olds.
Oh, I think that's a 2-year-old, actually. That 10 point?
No, not that one. There's 2 different ones.
Okay.
One with split G2, and then the one that showed up first, who doesn't have a split G2.
I know the first one you're talking about.
Anyways, a great deer. Probably 3-year-olds.
Great example. Great deer. it's funny because
as a 3-year-old.
It's just funny how we like, because we're constantly navigating trying to understand other people's perception. It's like, okay, what scale are you looking at? And you're right. It is a great 3-year-old, and it is a 3-year-old.
Yeah, you and I both already said, obviously we're not going to shoot that deer this year.
It's funny, man. It was just like the sensitivities around that. And that's where transparently, Hunter gets some blowback, right? Because people are like, oh, you guys are ruining it, booners everywhere, da-da-da-da. And it's we're not saying that those aren't, if you shoot that deer, you're a piece of shit. That's not what we're saying. It's just, it comes out, it's no different than sports, right? If you said, Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player of all time. There is a very level playing field of perception to that, right? Kids today may say, well, no, LeBron James is. Well, that's because you never saw Jordan play, and he's not as good as Jordan was. But, it's a shitty analogy, but I'm trying to lay it's hard to
level
compare it to
playing
anything.
field.
What else is really like that, though? Just deer hunting in general is so relative, and it is so different for everybody based on,
I would say, you know what I would say?
Where you're at in your hunting career and where you're at in the country.
It's much like your house. If you say, hey, Jared, you've got a great house.
Yeah.
That's very relative to what I think is income level and everything else.
Yeah, sure.
Somebody who's a multi-millionaire may say, yeah, like a guest house.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
It's no different than if I'd rather have a log cabin in the middle of the woods type of house, whereas some city person would think it's dirty and nasty or whatever. It's very relative to their lifestyle and experience.
It's very interesting. It's just I enjoy, but I know they're sensitive and feelings get hurt over just the analysis of what a deer is. It's so loaded. It's changed so much because it's
and I know that there were guys that did that 10, 20 years ago. So I'm not saying that guys like the Wenzels and things like that, but very, very uncommon. 20 years ago, people deer hunted and people killed bucks, and small amounts of people killed truly giants. Mm-hmm. Now, because of the wide open reality of communication and transparency, more of us, even if we don't kill them or we don't even have a chance to kill them, more of us can see the potential of a whitetail buck in states and say, oh, no, that's a big deer. Mm-hmm. Where 20 years ago, I had no idea. I thought a 12-inch 8-pointer that was 2 years old in Pennsylvania was a big buck.
Yeah. Here, let me see if I can put this into words. It's the misuse, I think, of actual scientific, maybe not scientific, just of terms that have made me pause or step back. Great deer is mm-hmm. one. Mature deer is another. Mm-hmm. And neither of those are.
Well, great is subjective.
Great is subjective. Yeah, mature
is objective. It is at maturity. A deer is 5+.
And more often than not, in conversation, they kind of all get lumped in together.
Yep.
And for myself, and for our purposes, I think it's important to maintain accuracy, mm-hmm. so we know what we're talking about. So it's mm-hmm. somebody shoots a 2 or 3 year old. Again, all this is completely relative. You go to Michigan or in Pennsylvania, dude, a 3-year-old deer is
a 3 or 4 year old deer in Michigan or Pennsylvania.
I'm not going to ever say somebody's deer that they shot isn't a great deer, because it is. Every deer that you shoot is a great.
As long as you're happy with it, I'm happy with it.
Yes. The mature deer one is a little more where I'm it's not.
It's not.
Again, it's relative.
Well, think of the complete other falsified type data that we see is there's a lot of content producers are yep, this deer was 9 when I killed it. And it's no, it was not.
Yeah.
It's not even to the point where you're trying to classify it as, oh, this was a mature buck. You're nope, I know he's 9.5. No, you don't. You have no freaking idea.
I'm not going to get down on anybody's deer. I do want people to shoot anything that they're happy with. But I don't like when especially like you said, it's TV guys and stuff or whatever, where they're like,
because
it's a mature deer, and it, like clearly it's not.
You're impressing that information on somebody who wants to understand, who is thriving to try to be better, and now you're telling them a lie.
Yeah, and I also don't know. I don't think it's done
maliciously.
I think it's done out of justification more often. Like
I know.
Usually when you hear the word great deer, it's because they know it's not a great deer, but they want.
Well, a perfect case in point: management or call buck.
And that's okay. I mean, if you shot a deer that it wasn't as good as you thought, like that happens.
That's your justification.
That happens.
That's
fine.
worse than anything, I think. When you're watching something and you're like, yeah, I killed a good management buck. Why do you have to say that?
Yeah, that you're getting into the vein of like the stuff that I don't like.
Like why do you have to say it's a call buck? And people on here will be like, well, because it is a call buck. Like so like what made it a call buck? Because he was a 8-point at 2 years old or 3 years old. Like there is a lot of that is the justification.
It is funny to try to understand, because every time that happens, you hear like if a deer gets killed and who knows, maybe it would have been a call buck at some point, but it's like how often does that happen? You know, where it's
it doesn't.
No, it does a lot. When
in reality, it doesn't happen. In justification, it happens all the time.
In justification is where you hear that.
Because think about like when we were in Kansas, that year that I put that arrow into the shoulder of Y Boy, we had that giant 6-point.
Mm-hmm.
And people would justify by saying, well, I killed him because he was a call buck. For you and I, that was a 5 or 6 year old, but like that was a mature deer. Like that deer wasn't getting any better.
Well, in the sake of herd management, which we're not even scratching the surface of like being effective at in a state like Kansas that we hunt 1 week out of the year, but that is a call buck in the terms of like it's not a high scoring. It is a fully mature. Yeah, to us, it's also a trophy. It can be all of the above.
Yeah, but the fact is it can't be a call or a management buck unless it's like part of a true plan. Like if you're just out there hunting and you're like,
sure,
I killed this 6-point because it was a call buck. It's fair. Like, dude, you killed it on public land. Like you're not calling anything out here.
Yeah, that's fair.
But that's the justification. That's the TV justification that's been used, right? How many guys do you now hear is like, oh, I killed a pretty good 8. It was probably a management buck, and it's like, dude, you killed it on public land. Like, what do you mean management buck? You're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So it's that the need for justification is probably the biggest issue I have with today's hunting community.
Yeah, well, it's almost a shame that it's even, gets into our social media discussion and everything, but it's a shame that it's warranted or necessary for people to feel like, to justify the deer that they shot.
And that's where I think wide angle, but you talk about the woodsmanship and kind of the unknown and how things were like, man, there was a lot of clarity back then that today is clouded by justification, especially. You didn't hear anybody 10 years ago say, yeah, I killed that 8 and it was a call buck. Nobody said that shit.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been, it's come about because of like, perceived expectation, which is a negative, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they
justify because they feel like they have to justify. Yeah, and I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, same with.
I don't want people to feel bad about any deer that they shoot.
Like, not every year. I mean, Andre was the one who told us that. Not every year are you always going to kill your best buck. Like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
And so when you start your post of I just killed this buck, it's not my biggest. Like, well, yeah, dude. Not every year is going to be bigger than the last.
Yeah.
Like that's an impossible goal.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good kind of point to all that. Is like, you and you alone should be the only. I guess if there's other guys hunting the same property you are, or a landowner, so if somebody has actual expectations, if you're hunting with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I mean, you're the only one that should kind of set the standard for the deer that you want to shoot. So, and you shouldn't have to justify it to anybody about, oh, it's a great deer or it's this or it's that.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. If that's a deer that you wanted to shoot and you're happy with it, then I think I would be happy with that too.
Yeah, I think that the and again, that because of things like that and all the technology we have and all the knowledge we do have at our fingertips with the internet versus 20 years ago when we didn't have that, it's hard to put into words like, even where I would summarize my hunting career now versus then. Like, I I was a straight killer 20 years ago. I mean, I would, and transparently,
You still are.
well, I only hunted one state. I don't hunt any other state 20 years ago. I hunted Pennsylvania. I'd kill a buck and I'd kill, I don't know, 5, 6 does, as many doe tags I could get my hands on. And like, it was just a simple process and a gut instinct and reaction, and you just did it. You all right? You in choke?
Wrong tube.
Nick, give him a Heimlich. But like, if you think about it now, it's like, yeah, I mean, I kill a lot of deer. I hunt a lot of different places. It's different. Like, I feel more scattered now, or even called blinded in some cases, than I did then, because I cover more ground. I don't, and for better say, like, I don't put my feet on every piece of, inch on a piece of property that like I used to understand and know it.
Yeah. Well, we're both stretched thin to a degree. Too much of that is bad, I think, because it's like, you're inefficient, ineffective. But a little bit of that is good, I think. To be able to stretch yourself, put yourself in new territory, out of your comfort zone.
Maximize the season
is good. You want to have your baseline of your expectation for the season, and be able to enjoy it.
I think that's where the going back to the camera thing comes in, is that for 3 seasons now, I'd say I rely very heavily on cell cameras in terms of like what's happening when I make my move, to the point where it is absolutely reverted my success in hunting. Yeah, because I just don't hunt until I feel like it's right. When I finally feel like it's right, I'm a step behind. Yeah. Whereas before, I may have been step ahead for most of the season, and all of a sudden they come together, right? And you succeed.
Yeah. Well, and I think on the other side of that, though, it's like, you kind of went through this trail camera phase. All of us probably have. And it was a negative for a point in time. And now, hopefully, and through this conversation, we're realizing that, like, hey, it's not inherently a negative. Like, that information is super valuable.
Oh, unreal.
But we need to now take that and put it in its rightful place, like in our understanding of a hunting strategy, and still continue to...
Yeah, I mean, it becomes, instead of, and this is where I think because the technology was so overwhelmingly, like I said, 20 years ago, I was developing film from a trail camera, right? Now it's like, right now, we could be sitting here getting buck pictures on this. That information and that amount of data was too much for most people to handle, to where we're like, well, like, I'm not going to hunt today because he wasn't there yesterday. And in reality, it's like, well, you got a picture of him 2 days ago. He's there. He just didn't walk in front of your camera. Thus, you didn't get the picture yesterday. You still should hunt today based on whatever, wind, weather, etc. So people have to realize, like, use those cameras as a tool. But if you start to rely on them, again, me being guilty of it myself, you start to rely on them too much, it will ruin your success rate. That's where it's so funny, because we've talked about how cell cameras, like, they kill deer. Cell cameras kill deer.
They do.
But it also...
You can't replace, though, time spent scouting. Time in
the woods.
What kills deer is observation.
Yep.
Whether that's with a camera, if you're getting pictures of them, great, and that will kill them. But if you're not, you need to be out there, finding them via scouting, or time in the truck or whatever. But observation is what kills deer, because they are habitual creatures.
Yep.
Especially mature bucks. If you can, whittle down what they're doing. I mean, that's how you kill them. Killing deer is just getting within a range of what, a pattern that they have, or maybe it's not a pattern, maybe it's a one-time thing, but just that's how you kill them. It's not. It's funny, man. It's hard to like keep it in perspective of what it is. Like, you think it's like a, I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but it's like, it's almost like, we think that little things that we do, or like mistakes that we make, or what, like, it's gonna make the deer smaller or something. Yeah. Like, it's gonna. Yeah. It's like, no. It's an animal. It's out there. He is what he is. The name of the game is to get within 20 yards of it.
Yep. And they're smart, and look what they survive. I mean, they are, all they got to do is survive. That's it. That's the only thing they have to do, survive.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that when you look at it, because there was a streak there. What was that? I don't know if it started with that deer. It may have been the year before I killed that deer. It's maybe 2016, probably. I think 2016, 17, 18. Pre-cell cameras at that point. But I ran a lot of regular cameras. 3 years in a row, I sat on the sidelines, essentially, for 3-4 weeks at the beginning of the season. I didn't hunt. Just because I'm like, weather's not right, wind's not right, whatever. I knew what deer were kind of in the area.
Well, there's some influence there from industry stuff too. I mean, I was kind of the same way, because a lot of guys were like, "Well, I don't really, I don't really start ramping up till the 25th," and so we were like, "That's what you do," And
then I killed, like, first sit 2 or 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Which was great. Like, that's the whole point. But I didn't really get to experience the season. I was frankly more successful then because I just knew the deer was in the area. I didn't really wait to get him on camera. I waited till the weather was right for where I thought he was bedding. And I got between them and scrapes, essentially. But yeah, it's just weird how then all of a sudden, sometime around 2019, I think I started using cell cams, and it was like, it completely changes the way I hunted. Not necessarily for the better either.
Yeah.
Did I see more deer? Did I get more pictures of deer? Did I know that there were bigger deer than I thought were there? Absolutely. There was some really good intel. Did it make my hunting more successful? I don't think so. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealthcam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now, at least, my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone, checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And, dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealthcam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately, that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealthcam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out. Well, there's kind of a whole, another conversation we could get into, which is monitoring versus manipulating.
Yep.
And like probably early on, it was all monitoring. And it was not necessarily bad. It was like, hey, okay, here's scrape, here's sign, here's whatever. We're going to set these cameras up to monitor it. And over time, that's evolved into, and there's huge merit to, so I mean, I understand why, total manipulation. Where it's like, I don't even try to find a regular scrape. I just make one.
I make one. I put a cell camera on it. I get a picture of him. I know which way he's coming from with which wind, and then I hunt him.
And I mean, you could apply that to anything, from scrapes to food sources, whether it be bait or food plots, to timber work, falling trees in a certain area, like
funneling them, pinching them in.
All these things you can do to manipulate versus just monitor and hunt on natural patterns. It's like, I don't know. It's like you could go completely one way or completely the other, or we're probably both somewhere in the middle. Because we do some of those tactics. We do want to try to manipulate deer movement a little bit.
Yeah, but I also want to, again, just based on the last few years, I plan on getting back to more. He's there. I think I know where he's bedding. We talked about it yesterday a bunch, like bedding here and they're working here. I'm going to hunt him. Versus, here he is. Now get in there and hunt. I don't think it works that way for a lot of things. There's some major exceptions, like early season bait pal, early season like green beans, like when some of these deer are on literally bed food. Late season, bed food. Very easy to pattern with a cell cam and I think kill that deer like that.
Very easy, but
easier.
Hunting's not easy at the end of the day, dude. It's
in the middle though. Middle of that season,
hard.
As you evolve food sources, as you get into the rut and stuff, even with cell cams, not nearly a given.
No, hunting's hard, man. It's really hard,
and it should be. If hunting is easy, I don't think we'll last. as a community.
Yeah.
If people, and that was the thing, it's so hard to describe it, but because I remember when I was like first getting into hunting, like my dad wanted me to see deer. Like he wanted me to see deer, but he wanted me to shoot a deer, right? But he also knew like, hey, we're going to put on the miles, or you're going to sit and get cold and you're not going to see something, or you're not going to get a shot. So you're always walking that fine line of success yet failure to make you want to come back. Man, I worry, again, just looking at everything we have. It's like we're doing everything we possibly can to make success happen easily. And in the history of anything humans have done, I don't see where that's a good thing. In order to stick it out, to evolve, to become better. I think we're worse hunters today than we were 20 years ago because we rely completely on the advances of technology, weapons, cameras, bait, opportunity, whatever. We may kill more deer today than we did 20 years ago, but I don't think we're better hunters than we were 20 years ago.
Sure, that's fair.
It's a weird situation to be in. In fact, and what's kind of crazy about it is you look at like my dad's age or your dad's age, like your uncle's age, like those guys, I bet feel a bit lost in today's hunting community. Because like the way that they grew up, first of all, some of those guys grew up like my dad's age in that early 60s. They didn't see shit. There wasn't deer in the 70s, right? Then in the 80s and 90s, they kind of hit this heyday of deer, especially the 90s, where there was a lot of deer, but there was a lot of does and small bucks. But I mean, it was woodsmanship. You had old bows, like even the early compound bows were super, wooden, just wheelbase type stuff. And now, like, think about those guys fast forwarding 30 years into the days of, 400 feet per second crossbows and cell cameras and, straight wall cartridge rifles. It's like, what? Like, I mean, they probably feel a little bit just lost of like, what is this thing? You and I have kind of started in like that harder time. But
I feel that way a lot.
What the
hell is this?
Yeah, we evolved quickly into what we're in now. Like, I mean, the heyday of our hunting career is in this side of things. It's towards the end of their hunting career that they're facing this, and it's like, I think that's also why we're losing a lot of those guys. Is like they're like, this isn't hunting. This isn't how I grew up. This isn't why I did it. And so a lot of those guys are they're not going to hunt like that because it's just, to them, that's not hunting. Mm-hmm. It's easy. Like,
yeah,
doesn't make any sense for them. So yeah, I think these are the factors that when we talk about like what's happening with the hunting community, why are we losing hunters? How do we keep hunters? I don't think that the opportunity things that these guys are doing, I don't think they're realizing that it's hurting it as much as it's helping it.
Yeah. Well, the reality is like they're just deer, and like if we wanted to, we could kill them all. Like we're humans, we're super smart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Like we have the technology. Like if you wanted to, you could go out and kill every deer. You just could. With things like thermal, and we had drones. Like I mean. Like, look at military technology. If we wanted to, we could kill every deer.
Yeah.
It's just a reality.
Yep.
Hunting is, hunting is so great because it requires sportsmanship, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like, we allow ourselves to use a level of technology that it's because they have a chance, and the greater chance that they have at living, probably the more rewarding, it is when we have success. And so while these technologies are available and we will become more effective at killing deer because of them, it's not necessarily, I think it's taking away from the sportsmanship a bit.
How many hunters in today do you think, like percentage wise, actually feel like they appreciate the hunt, sportsmanship, and challenge versus the goal is to kill, period? Think it's 50-50?
I don't know, honestly. It's hard to say because some people might not know.
That like the only thing they know is what they're offered right now.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think it's hard to to have a full concept of that.
Yeah, it's
It's also a grab. So it's like, if it's based on your level of access, you might not have the opportunity with the same level of sportsmanship that somebody else does because of where they live or how much property they have access to. And so, but we all want to kill the same deer, regardless of how much, we want to kill giant deer. Everybody does, and so the temptation is there to use more advanced technology or whatever, tactics, things that, help you kill deer more easily.
And it's
to achieve that result.
It's the state's responsibility to manage where that limit is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, right. and just, I think it helps for us, to have the conversation, because it's like, we're not putting anybody down for using any type of hunting
if it's legal,
method,
it's legal.
But that is the reality. Like, in the same way that we're talking about the reality of what a deer is and what they aren't earlier on, the reality is that if we wanted to, we could kill every single deer.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. Like, I remember, and I still do get excited, but not, like, I remember, like, really getting pumped up when I killed a doe. Like, dude, I could kill a doe every hunt if I wanted to now. Every hunt.
Unless you're trying to. Then they seem to elude us. Yeah.
Then same with squirrels. Like, if I don't want to kill a squirrel, I see them everywhere. If I want to kill a squirrel, they're nowhere to be found. But, it really was like, doe coming, like, it was a hunt. It was a passion. And now it's like the tools that I have and whatever. Yeah, it's pretty easy to kill a doe anymore, especially with a gun. Like, if I wanted to go kill one during gun season, it's pretty easy. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I still get excited about it. It's a different mindset. It's a different thing altogether. I mean, we shoot does for food or for herd management, and neither of those things are as exciting as, and they never will be, never have been, shooting a giant buck, Yeah, no, they haven't.
It's a different thing.
It was more reality, though, at one point in time. Like, when Pennsylvania had the separate seasons, when we had a buck season and then a 3-day doe season, like, the odds of you getting a shot at a buck during buck season.
It is funny for me, being in that situation, like, to witness the mad rush for PA doe tags. I'm like, you guys get so worked up about, like, it's just a doe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, to the point where, like, online, it's monitoring, like, so-and-so, this wildlife management unit's sold out. There are no more. Yeah, it's a weird thing.
It's tied to culture too, though. I think, like, it's important to some guys, like, they have a doe camp or something, or it's like that's a
well, that's what I was gonna say. During those 2 weeks of buck season, like, the odds of you getting a shot at a buck were not real good. Like, if you had a group of 10 guys, like, we would have 10 to 14 guys at our buck camp. I think the most bucks we ever killed during opening day and the second day was 3 out of 10 to 14 guys. Yeah. That seemed to be like that was the cap. We couldn't really break over that top. Maybe that was just the quality of hunters we were too. But
sure.
So then when the 3-day doe season hit, it was like, okay, this is like my last chance to kill deer, and it was like a war zone. I remember we killed 10 does basically.
Yeah.
But it was different. Like you said, it was different. But the excitement around that 3-day doe season was the same as the buck season. Now, if you would have killed a giant 8-point or something, I said giant, a 2-year-old 8-point, like, it didn't, I'm not saying your doe matched that excitement, but the feeling, the culture, the camaraderie, like, everything felt great about doe camp as it did with buck camp. But it's weird to see that, again, going back to the opportunity. And I know there's reasons they do it management wise, but, like, the fact that, like, for most states, it's like, well, deer season starts, you can kill buck or doe any time of the year. There was no separate season. For us growing up where there was separate seasons, kind of took a little bit of that excitement away, to where I think people don't get as excited about killing a doe or don't feel like that cool, 3-day doe season. There's still people that ask for it to come back. They never will. But it wasn't necessarily because people were better at killing does then, as much as it was a cool, isolated, very small time frame season, just like bear season here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different when you look at that kind of lifestyle and excitement, and doe season was a great time to just because it was not many people hunted after Christmas in Pennsylvania. So, like, I mean, I covered ground in doe season. That's when I really started to learn a lot of these places. Like, oh, this is a great bedding area, or look at these rubs in this area. It's because I was on the ground walking and hunting a lot at that point in time. And it's not because I'm old. I don't that's not the style of hunting for a lot of us anymore. Like, in fact, it's almost frowned upon in some places. Like,
What is?
just like out still hunting and walking around and like so if I hunt public land, even in Ohio, I've got public land right next to my Ohio place. A lot of times during the season, I'm not going to hunt a morning in early October. So I'll go for a walk on my property, but I also go out on public, start scouting. Where am I seeing scrapes? Where am I seeing? I've run into people and they cuss me up and down. And I understand, like, you're hunting and like the last thing I would do is mess up your hunt.
Sure.
But it's like it's basically them say, like, we don't do that shit. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm out trying to read sign. I'm out trying to learn the property and stuff. And I think people today are just like, you don't have to do that. You have all this technology. You've got Onyx. You've got Spartan Forge. You've got so you don't need to be just out walking around. And like, that's still super important, in my opinion, to success for hunting. And it's just a weird thing. Like, I mean, and I would probably say the same thing. Like, if I walk way back in on public and, all of a sudden somebody comes through and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm just scouting. But fuck. But it's like, I don't blame them. Like, that's what they should be doing.
Sure.
In fact, I'd love to see more people on the ground scouting and learning and developing woodsmanship than just cameras out, food plots here, block spines there, and I'm killing them.
I mean, you're getting into the public land thing.
Well, not even that. Even say your private land. Like,
I don't want to see anybody.
How many?
I'm gonna go hunting and not see anybody.
What's what I'm gonna say? Like, how many people have told us, whether it's Mark Drury or Higgins or Sturgis or whatever, it's like, don't go on your property. Like, just, you don't want to go on the property, because if you go on the property and you start moving like those mature bucks don't want that disturbance.
Well, again, it's kind of your manipulation versus observation thing. It's like, those guys are setting up farms, not in a negative sense, but to manipulate deer to come to a certain area, and they benefit hugely from not stepping foot on any other part of their property.
Maybe I'm going through like a midlife hunting crisis here. I just it kind of goes back to like the in-season scouting asset thing. Like, I can remember spending a lot of time in October, especially, finding scrapes, finding fresh rubs, looking at sign. And I would say that probably in the last 2 or 3 years, I've really refrained from that to try to leave these properties more undisturbed. Well, I don't know if maybe I have more mature bucks on the property. Very possible. But I don't know if that's made me a better hunter. And that's subjective as well. So I'm not saying that like, you're not a good hunter or you are a good hunter. But like, in my opinion, I don't know if I'm a better hunter overall because I've stayed out of my properties. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. There's a right and wrong time to do it. I think Andre Duquesa does a really nice job of explaining, going into an area strategically with confidence and the ability to observe and maximize, findings in a way that kills deer.
And a lot of the bump and dump situations you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, bump and dump or just scouting,
Yep.
Or maybe it was Cody that was talking about going to a new area and scouting it in a way that, is, and maybe you do end up bumping deer, but.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable in a lot of cases. I just think
it is what it is, dude. They're just an animal living out there at the end of the day. Sign is sign, and
it comes back to the experience thing. Like, obviously, I want to kill a giant. Like, I'd love to kill a Boone and Crockett deer this year. That's just, a mature Boone and Crockett deer is like the pinnacle of what I'd love to kill this year. At the same time, it's like, man, I really enjoy just being in the woods and reading sign and saying, like, man, that's a giant scrape. It's fresh. Like, where would that deer be coming from? Set a new camera
and you
up
can,
on it.
Yeah, you can do both. You can just.
I think I'm saying that, not to interrupt you. I'm saying that because I think a lot of people, and this isn't like in a disrespect to Mark or any of these guys, but a lot of people hear those guys and they're like, I can't go on my property. I can't enjoy. Like, I literally just have to go into my stand and out of my stand, into my stand, out of my stand.
Yeah, I mean, I think the season it becomes about different things, like, throughout different phases of your career, your hunting career, or your life, like, not to put words in those guys' mouth, but like, I would imagine for guys that have it to a science, your Lee and Tiffany's, your Drury's, your Higgins maybe, not to lump them all into the same group, but like, maybe more the first two, and, you know, Mark and Lee and Tiffany, it's like they've probably become so efficient at that. It's just like,
I mean, Lee said it.
It's evolved into, now they can start to build in other, you know, elements, like bringing people into camp, like, you know, hosting, you know, whether it's events or, you know, hosting different types of camps or whatever. Or I think it can evolve into that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
do you ever want to be that efficient? I mean, Lee basically said, he's like, here's the deer I'm going to kill this year, period. That he's got it down. He is 100%. That deer is dead already.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because every chase is still unique. You know, I think as long as I'm still enjoying it, I do think that there's always new elements, like getting new people involved. I think is a huge one. You know, that's your end all. Like that's your sportsmanship model is like after you've achieved, you know, you
share,
you share, and I do want to do that a lot. But you know, and I do, right? Like, you know, so Corey is somebody I'm getting into hunt. Our guys, you know, I spend a lot of time scouting for our guys and stuff, but it's still such a challenge for me.
Sure.
That it's like it's barely attainable, you know, if at all. So I don't know. And it changes from season to season, man. I think it's just about like, you should have goals. You know, I want to improve as a hunter. I want to get more effective. But I also want to slow the season down and enjoy every single second of it. And so that requires reduction of pressure on myself to achieve that goal. So it's somewhere in between. You have to, at the end of the day, if your goals are high, like you have to be okay with, you know, eating tags from time to time. And like, believe me, I've eaten a lot of them, a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a big piece because obviously, I mean, there are people here that will say that they don't care, but like for most of us, we want to kill a big buck this year. Big being subjective. But I would say that there's still quite a few of us that are, to your point, want to slow it down, just want to enjoy the process in the season. You know, frankly, that's why when we were shooting yesterday, though I have a long way to go, like that's why I have the recurve out. Like that's a whole different world for me and super challenging and pretty much unattainable in many senses. But it's like, okay, like this is new, it's different, it's harder, it's challenging. It maybe it lowers my standards. Maybe instead of looking for a 4 or 5, I kill a 3-year-old. Like I don't know. Yeah. And I'm not trying to like
I don't know, make it crazy.
Yeah, maybe kill Spike Nick. I don't know, you know. But well, even going back to a doe, like I kill a doe with a recurve, it will be exciting because it'll be the first deer I've ever killed with a recurve. Sure. I've never killed one before.
Sure.
So there's some things to do. I guess I would say, we got to wrap this up, but I would say for everyone listening, you know, what's it, September 9th it's dropping or something, Nick?
The 12th.
September 12th. September 12th, either your season just opened or it's on the very, very near horizon. I would say just take an hour when you're listening to this or after you're listening to this, think about what you want this year. You know, and don't just say, well, I want to kill the biggest buck I can get. Think about what you want out of this season and make a little bit of a strategy for it. Because if you don't have a strategy and you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants, the season will blow by you and you won't get what you want out of it. And I say that from experience.
Here, and I'll say this at the same time, maybe contradictory. You got to take it as she comes too.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying like I'm going to hunt this day and this day and this day.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, you're saying have a goal, and I'm agreeing. Have a goal. You know, try to achieve something you've never achieved before. But you know, the best thing about bow hunting is it's the highs and lows, right?
Oh,
and you know, kind of taking what's thrown at you and adapting and enjoying it along the way. So like, I mean, dude, every decision pretty much that you and I make in life is weighed against, is that going to improve my hunting experience? Is that going to degrade it? Am I able to hunt more? Am I able to hunt less?
Yeah.
And so like, as the years are going on here, I would say we hunt probably more and more. Like, you know, at least
we want to at least. Yeah.
At least we try to like, you know, structure career choices and like, whatever around the ability to maximize it. Because, dude, if it's during or leading up to, or you know, the deer season, and I want to be involved in it. You know, so if that means, you know, planting food plots or, you know, moving tree stands for guys, or, you know, you and I discussing how we're going to do this for the dads or whatever. It's like, I want to be as much a part of that as I can. And at the end of it, be able to look back on a season and say, man, I had a great season.
That's
and if
it
I
right
achieved
there.
my goal,
Yeah.
great. If not, okay. There's always next season.
I think that's it, because my failures, plain and simple, have been I looked at a season too often very black and white. Did I kill the buck I wanted to, or did I not? That was how I evaluated it. It's not right. At the end of the season, in order for it to be successful, you should look back and say, damn, I missed that and I can't wait for the next one. That means the experience was great. That means you thoroughly enjoyed and you took advantage of the season that was given to you. Does it mean that you, quote, succeeded? Maybe, maybe not.
And a healthy dose of,
regret?
Not regret. Like the unknown, the stress that's related, and trying to get on a big deer, like the struggle to achieve.
Well, that's what drives you back.
Is a good thing.
That's what makes you better.
You can't let it, become to a point where you had a bad season where that's all, but that's part of it. The growth, it's going to hurt a little bit. There's going to be failures along, there's going to be misses, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. It's going to suck. There's going to be parts of it that suck.
There will be,
but ultimately it's what builds the great season.
There will be memories there are certain things in time throughout every season that, you should be able to look back. Like I look at that picture, like there were a shitload of highs and lows during that hunt. Like I can recount that entire hunt and track job with the four of us in that picture, just because it was like very vivid of a memory and unique and experience, and fortunately ended up in an awesome success. But you should come out of a season with something like that every year.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I don't think you're doing it right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that is all we got for this week on HUNTR Podcast. And good luck this season. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid, and enjoy it.
We'll see you.
Take me